Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. In a city of China dwells a man who is a tailor. He has a son called Aladdin, who has been from his birth a ne'er-do-well, a scapegrace. His father wants to teach him his trade but fails, and when he dies, Aladdin finds himself free from the severities of his father. His mother sells the shop and turns to spinning cotton yarn to make sure they have food. One day, when Aladdin is playing outside with the vagabond boys, a darwish from Maghrabi, from inner Morocco, comes to Aladdin. He is a magician and has a careful look at the boy. When he finds out the boy has no father, he pretends to be his uncle. Aladdin tells his mother about his uncle, but his mother says he's dead. The next day, the magician gives Aladdin 2 gold coins to bring home. Again, Aladdin says to his mother that he has met his uncle from exile. His mother is amazed, for she is sure he is dead. The next day, the magician gives Aladdin 2 dinars, for he wants to have supper with him and his mother. He lets Aladdin show him the way to Aladdin's home. When his mother has prepared supper, the Maghrabi comes with a eunuch. He is going to sit where his brother sat, and cries for him. He tells that he left for Egypt and then Morocco 40 years ago. He stayed in Morocco for 30 years, but he wanted to see his brother once more and so sets out to find him. When he saw Aladdin, he knew immediately he was the son of his brother. The Maghrabi asks which trade Aladdin has, but his mother answers for him that he knows nothing, and just sits idly all day. At first the Maghrabi is harsh toward Aladdin, but when he notices he doesn't want to do hard work, he changes his suggestion. He wants to make him a trader. Aladdin likes this idea as merchants dress handsomely. So the magician will open a store for him. Aladdin's mother still has her doubts, but as the man spends a lot of money for her son, she concludes it must be her husband's brother. The Maghrabi introduces Aladdin to the merchants, and brings him to many wonderful places. His mother is very pleased. On a Sabbath day, the magician brings Aladdin well beyond the city gardens. The Mormon soothes Aladdin, but when at night, Aladdin finds him conjuring with words he does not understand, he tries to flee. He is stopped and hit on the head. When he wakes up, he asks why he deserved such a treatment, upon which the magician says that he is making a man of him and that he must obey. He tells him he will cast the earth asunder to open a hoard of treasure, which Aladdin has only access to. Aladdin has to move a slab. Only he can move the slab with a ring. The magician tells Aladdin there will be a space divided into 4 halls, and in each of these halls, there will be 4 jars. However, Aladdin must not touch the jars or the walls, and move to the 4th hall. If he does not, he will turn into a black stone. When he opens a door in the 4th hall, he must call the names written upon it and enter a garden with fruit-bearing trees. He must travel on a path which will lead him to an open terrace with a ladder. There he will find a lamp hanging. He must climb the ladder, take the lamp and pour out its oil. Once he has the lamp, he can eat from the fruit in the garden. The Maghrabi gives Aladdin a signet ring to keep him safe. He promises him in a short time to make him rich. Aladdin does what the magician asks him to do, and finds out that the fruit in the trees are gems and jewels. After he takes the lamp, he greedily collects the gems and jewels to take home. When Aladdin comes to the 1st hall, he finds out he cannot get out by himself, and asks his uncle to help him. The Maghrabi says he will do so if Aladdin would hand over the lamp. Aladdin is unable to do so but promises him he will give him the lamp once he is out. The magician abandoned all hope of gaining the lamp, and closed the entrance to let Aladdin die. The magician had been addicted to witchcraft, and practiced every manner of the occult. After 40 years, he discovered an immense hoard at the Chinese city of Alcalas. It contained a lamp, and he who possessed it could not be surpassed by any man. When he found out the hoard could only be opened by Aladdin from poor descent, he went to China. After his failure, he returns disappointed back to Africa. Aladdin, in the meantime, concludes that this was not his uncle, and despairs as there is no escape from the hoard. When he is at his utter despair he rubs his hands, and with them, the signet ring he got from the magician in a familiar appears, who says he is the thrall on whose hand is the ring. Aladdin immediately wishes to be on the surface on the earth, which happens at once. Next he goes to his mother he has been missing a lot. He tells his story while eating and drinking, for he hasn't eaten for 3 days. When Aladdin wants to sell the lamp, his mother cleans it, and while cleaning it, a genie appears, telling to be a slave of he who holds the lamp. Upon hearing this he snatches the lamp from his tongue-tight mother, and says he wants something to eat, and a sumptuous meal appears. He revives his mother, and she asks where the royal meal comes from, but Aladdin says not to be bothered about that and eat. After the meal, he explains about the ring and the lamp. His mother tells him to throw them both away as nothing but trouble can come out of it, as the Prophet warned against them. When they are finished eating, Aladdin brings the empty golden platters to a peddler, who gives him a dinar for them, a very cheap bargain. He goes and buys food for dinner and gives it to his mother. And every empty platter is sold to the peddler. After the golden platters, Aladdin also sold him silver ones, receiving some money for it. When all the platters are empty, Aladdin asks the slave for more, and gives 12 new ones. His mother rejoices after seeing more food. When Aladdin wants to sell his platters again, he encounters an ancient jeweler, a sheikh. The sheikh is an honest man and weighs the platter. He says it's worth 70 dinar instead of the one the Jew asks, and Aladdin sells him the platter. Aladdin does not leave his old fashion of living, but also becomes more gracious, and visits the jeweler's quarter often. He learns that his jewels from the enchanted treasure are worth a lot, and understands he has acquired more wealth than kings can ever possess. One day, the crier proclaims that Lady Badr al-Budur will come to the hammam, and those who look upon her will get the death penalty. But Aladdin longs to look upon the king's daughter, so he decides to hide behind the hammam door, before the sultan's daughter arrives. When he sees her, he is captivated by her beauty and is love-struck. He goes home, and after some days, he tells his mother. He tells her he will ask the sultan permission to marry her. His mother calls Aladdin insane, but he resolved. Aladdin wants his mother to be his speaker. His mother argues that she is just from the pauper folk. But Aladdin is patient, and in the end, convinces his mother to go to the sultan. Yet she is still fearful of the outcome. They might think she is mad. Aladdin says that he has learnt from the jeweler's quarter that he possesses valuable gems, and asks his mother to get a porcelain bowl to put them in. When his mother sees the gems, she is convinced they are indeed very valuable. Still she is afraid her tongue will be tied and in danger of being put to death. They talk through the night and the next day his mother sets out. At the palace, Aladdin's mother can't get an opportunity to announce herself at the Sultan and returns home. She tells Aladdin she didn't get the chance to get audience with the Sultan, but she will try the next day. The next day, she finds the court closed and is told the Sultan does not hold a levee every day. So goes to court every time there is a reception for a month, without getting the opportunity to speak to the Sultan. The Sultan becomes aware of her presence and asks the Grand Wazir if he knows something about this woman who carries a bowl underneath her mantilla. His Wazir's answer doesn't satisfy him, and he baits to put her in front of him the next time she comes. When Aladdin's mother appears the next time, she first asks for immunity and pardon which she gets from the Sultan. She relates the story of Aladdin and the hammam baths, and that he has required her to ask to wed the daughter of the Sultan. After relating her story, Aladdin's mother asks the Sultan not to kill her, but he laughs and asks what's under her mantilla. She shows him the bowl of jewels. The Sultan is amazed and marvels at the radiance of the rare gems. He asks his Wazir if he has ever seen such jewels, at which the Wazir says no. He continues by saying none is more deserving of Badr al-Budur than Aladdin, but the Wazir says that the Sultan had promised his daughter to his son. He asks the Sultan 3 months to obtain an offering that is costlier than this. Although the Sultan knows this cannot be done, he grants him the delay. Returning to the old woman, the Sultan says he pledges his word, his daughter will be Aladdin's wife, but preparations ask for 3 months of patience. Aladdin's mother relates the story to Aladdin and also tells him the Sultan and the Wazir had a private conversation before he pledged his daughter. She fears the Wazir to be evil and will attempt to change the Sultan's mind. Aladdin is rejoiced to hear Badr will be his in 3 months' time. He thanks his mother. After 2 or 3 months, Aladdin's mother wants to buy oil, but finds most shops closed and the streets decorated. There are soldiers and household troops in the streets. When she asks what the meaning of all this is, she is answered that the son of the Wazir is going to marry Badr al-Budur. She returns home and tells Aladdin her story, and that the Sultan has broken his promise. At first Aladdin is jealous, then he remembers his lamp. He asks the slave to go to the bride and bridegroom this night and take them with bed and all to Aladdin. The slave does so, and the bridegroom is put in the bathroom. Aladdin says to the slave to come back the next morning to take the 2 back where they came from. Aladdin rejoices that Lady Badr al-Budur to be under his roof. Yet he preserves respect for her and calms her down. He lays a scimitar between him and the lady to keep separation. He does no villainy for he is satisfied by the fact that the lady keeps her maidenhead. The next morning, the genie returns and brings back the bride and bridegroom to their apartment. When the Sultan enters, the bridegroom is already changing himself in the wardrobe, and the Sultan asks his daughter if she is pleased with her husband. But she says nothing, and only looks at him with angry eyes. After many attempts to let her speak, the Sultan goes to the Queen to relate the story. The Queen says that the behavior of the princess is out of custom with most married couples. But when the Queen wants to talk to Lady Badr herself, she notices something is wrong. Her daughter relates the whole story to her. The Queen does not believe her and thinks she has lost her wits. They continue the feast at which the Queen asks the Wazir's son, but he says he has no knowledge of such things, because he fears he might lose his bride. The feast continues with Lady Baddeer pondering. Aladdin also sees the festivities and laughs when he hears praises for the wazir's son. The next night Aladdin rubs the lamp and the same event as last night occurs. When the Sultan enters the next morning, his daughter looks sad and sour, giving no answer to his questions. He then grabs his sword and threatens to kill her if she does not answer him. The princess then relates the whole story to her father, and says he should ask the bridegroom as well. The Sultan asks his wazir if he has heard anything from his son, at which the wazir said he hasn't, but will ask. His son confirms the story of the princess. He then implores his father to speak with the Sultan, and set him free from the marriage. The wazir, however, wants his son to be son-in-law to the Sultan, and he asks for patience. But when the Sultan hears his daughter's story to be true, he breaks off the marriage. The people marvel at this order. When 3 months have passed, Aladdin sends his mother to the Sultan. The Sultan recognizes her and lets the wazir bring her to him. Aladdin's mother says the Sultan must fulfill his promise. But the Sultan is appalled by the pauper presence of the old woman, and the wazir does not want to lose the lady to such a person when his son has lost her. He advises the Sultan to ask 40 platters of pure sand gold, and full of gems, with 40 slave girls to carry the platters, and 40 black eunuch slaves. The Sultan understands it should be impossible for Aladdin to achieve this, so he asks this gift from the old woman. Aladdin's mother runs back home in despair and tells her son the Sultan's demands. However, Aladdin is not impressed. He rubs the lamp and asks the slave for the Sultan's demands. Within 1 hour, the slave returns with the gold and people. When they go the Sultan, the people marvel at the train. At the Sultan, all the eunuchs and handmaids show their respect to him. He wonders a lot at the sight of the dower. The Sultan says to his wazir if Aladdin is not worthy of his daughter. The wazir, full of envy, says it is not enough. The Sultan sees the jealousy in the Grand Wazir. He says that he stands by his bargain. He tells the old woman to get Aladdin so he can meet him. Aladdin's mother speeds to her son and tells him the news. The Sultan goes to his daughter to tell her the news. At first the princess is in grief, but when she sees the dower, she is gladdened and the sadness from the wazir's son goes away. The Sultan also thinks this Aladdin is more suitable. Back at Aladdin, he rejoices at the news of his mother. He rubs the lamp and asks to bring him to the best hammam, and get a dress for him that no king has ever owned. After the hammam, he is clothed in expensive robes. Aladdin then asks for gold, jewels, handmaids, mamelukes, and a mighty stallion. He dresses his mother in rich garments, and gives her charge over 12 slave girls. They then move to the palaces, scattering gold amongst the crowd. At the palace, he is allowed to enter on his steed, which is a great honor, and he is welcomed heartily by the Sultan. Aladdin shows himself as somebody being humble, and asking for the hand of the Sultan's daughter. The Sultan is amazed, but the wazir is full of envy. The Sultan invites his son-in-law to speak with his wazirs, high official, and lords of the land. Aladdin wants to build a pavilion for the ladies so he can visit her. He gets a piece of land from the Sultan. When Aladdin is at home, he rubs the lamp and asks the slave for the pavilion. The building is finished within a night, and the slave brings Aladdin to the pavilion and shows him its majesty. But Aladdin still asks for one thing, a carpet that extends from the pavilion to the Sultan's palace, so the lady should never have to tread the common earth. The Sultan asks his wazir if Aladdin is not worthy of his daughter. But the wazir is still full of envy and says only magic can be the source of all of this. The Sultan sees the wazir's jealousy, and the wazir himself sees that the Sultan loves Aladdin, and becomes even more envious and malicious. Aladdin asks 10,000 dinars for his wedding from the slave. A wonderful wedding unfolds, and at the end, Aladdin goes to the pavilion to prepare it for his wife. He then rides his mighty steed and shows good horsemanship. He baths with the wazirs and nobles in the royal hammam. He then invites them to the pavilion where they have sherbets and sugared drinks. When the Sultan returns, everybody goes to the palace to escort the lady to the pavilion. The princess is amazed by the splendor of the pavilion, and when they finish eating, Aladdin goes into his bride. The next day, Aladdin is heartily welcomed by the Sultan. Aladdin invites him at the pavilion with all his ministers and grandees. The king is honored, and when he sees the structure, he is amazed. The Grand Wazir concludes this can only be done by force of sorcery. The Sultan agrees that it must be made with the art of black magic. Aladdin brings the Sultan to the upper kiosk and show him an unfinished window. Aladdin says he was unable to finish it because of the wedding, and the Sultan says he will finish it. The princess enters and they all eat. They are amazed by the sumptuous cooking. After eating, the Sultan goes to see if the window is finished, but it is not. He allows his workers to use the greater treasury instead of the lesser one, but still they cannot finish the window. Even when the Sultan orders to seize all the precious stones owned by wazirs and grandees, they cannot finish it. The next morning Aladdin sees the work unfinished and orders the jewelers to restore the stones to their rightful owners. When the Sultan asks them why Aladdin requested this, they say they did not know. Aladdin, meanwhile, rubs his lamp and asks the slave to finish the window, which he does. The Sultan arrives at the pavilion and Aladdin show him the perfect window. The Sultan marvels at what Aladdin did in one night what his jewelers could not in months. Aladdin goes into the city every day to give gold to the poor, and has much renown with the lords and emirs of the land. Aladdin wins himself more fame every day. It chanced that an enemy host threatened the lands of the Sultan, and Aladdin sets out to fight them. He defeats the invaders and returns victorious. The people embrace him and kiss him. Such is the high fortune of Aladdin. The Maghrabi, after returning to his native country, ponders. By magic, he tries to find out if the lamp is still at the enchanted treasury, and Aladdin dead, but he cannot get an answer. Enraged by the knowledge that Aladdin is still alive, he sets out for China to seek out Aladdin. He passes the group which tells stories of the pavilion and the beauty of Aladdin. He asks them of whom they are speaking. They immediately understand the Maghrabi is a foreigner and they explain to him they talk about Emir Aladdin. When they show him the pavilion, he comes up with a plan. The magician lets a coppersmith make several lamps and enters the streets, crying out who will exchange old lamps for new ones. Lady Badr al-Budur hears the Moroccan cry and asks her slave girls to find lamp to exchange. Aladdin, carelessly, had not put the lamp out of sight. The lamp is brought to the magician, and he recognizes it immediately. He leaves his lamps and clears the city. Outside the city, he rubs the lamp and the genie appears. He orders the slave to place the pavilion upon his own land including himself. The slave obeys and everything is transported to the African land. It is custom for Sultan to view the pavilion with his daughter every morning, but this morning he sees nothing. He asks his Grand Wazir to bring Aladdin, who is out hunting, in chains. Aladdin is not aware of the disappearance and is brought to the Sultan. The subjects of the Sultan are not happy with his arrest and revolt. Aladdin proposes to the Sultan to give him 40 days to retrieve the pavilion. If he is not able to, he will return and Sultan may take his head. Aladdin does not know what has befallen him, and what to do to bring his wife and the pavilion back. After 2 days, he goes in despair, to a river. He washes his hands, and by doing so accidentally rubs the ring. Its merit appears and asks what Aladdin wants. He explains the story says that he wants his wife and pavilion back. But the merit answers he dares not to interfere with the slave of the lamp. So Aladdin asks the merit to bring him to the pavilion, which he does. Aladdin thanks Allah for the blessing he received. He draws near to the pavilion and slumbers till morning comes. He then goes into the city, and sits himself under the windows of the princess's bower. By destiny, the princess looks out of her window and sees her master. She lets her slave girl open the door for Aladdin, and the two are reunited. Aladdin asks for the copper lamp and Lady Badr relates the whole story of the Mormon from Africa. She also tells him the accursed visits her once and no more. She tells Aladdin he holds the lamp with him. Upon hearing this, Aladdin goes outside, exchanges his rich clothes for that of a pauper. He also buys bang. Aladdin returns to the pavilion and tells the lady to dress in her best clothes and tell the magician she has forgotten her husband and father, and loves him. She has to give him wine, and put the bang into it, upon which he will drop as if dead. When the Maghrabi enters her chambers, she tells him she has changed and loves him. They drink wine from the Moroccan cellar, and when the wine has mastered him, the lady tells him of a custom from her lands in which lovers exchange their cups. So the Maghrabi gets her cup with bang. After drinking from the cup, he falls down as if dead and the lady and her slave girls let in Aladdin. He grabs the lamp from the Mormon and kills him. He rubs the lamp and the genie appears. He asks him to bring the pavilion back to China in front of the Sultan's palace. They eat and drink together until they fall asleep. The Sultan, still sorrowful of the loss of his daughter, wakes up seeing the pavilion in front of his palace. He rubs his eyes and goes to the pavilion on horse. He meets his daughter and holds her in his arms. She relates the story to the Sultan, including the secret of the lamp. The Sultan also kisses his son-in-law and says parents yearn for offspring. A great celebration takes place. But Aladdin does not escape from the accused entirely. Although the Mormon has died, he still has a brother more villainous than himself. With his sorcery, the brother finds out that his brother has been killed by an Aladdin who resides in China. He goes to the land and at a coffee house, he hears of the miracles of a certain Fatima the devotee. He asks where she might reside and people show him the way. He finds out she sleeps in a cavern and goes to it. He threatens to kill her if she does not exchange clothes with him, and to make his face the color of hers. When he looks just like her, he breaks his oath and strangles her to death. He goes to the walls of the pavilion to perform miracles like Fatima. Lady Baddir hears the turmoil outside, and invites Fatima into the pavilion to get a blessing. She offers Fatima a room to stay instead of the cavern. Fatima asks if she can eat and drink inside her own room, because the necromancer was afraid they would see his beard. When he sees the room, the lady asks him if the pavilion is to Fatima's liking. The necromancer tells her he misses an egg from the rook. He tells her of the gigantic bird, and that it would be magnificent to hang it in the pavilion. Aladdin returns and sees his lady saddened. He asks what is amiss, and she tells him she wants an egg of the rook. Aladdin says it's only a trifle. He goes to his room and gets his lamp. Aladdin asks the genie for an egg from the rook to be hanged in the pavilion. Upon hearing this, the genie angrily asks if it doesn't suffice to be a slave to the lamp, but that he also has to bring his lady for his pleasure, and hang her up at the pavilion dome for the enjoyment of Aladdin and his wife. The genie pardons the request, for he knows it comes from the necromancer disguised as Fatima. He then disappears. Aladdin trembles at the angry voice of the genie. He does not tell his wife but tells her he has a headache. She advises him to let Fatima the devotee help him. He asks her who this is and she tells him. The necromancer goes to Aladdin with a hidden dagger, but Aladdin watches him, seizes the weapon, and plunges it into the necromancer's heart. Lady Baddir asks him why he would kill such a holy woman, but he tells her of the necromancer's deceit. He shows her the face of the Maghrabi, and she says that she has twice brought her husband into trouble. He forgives her. The body of the necromancer is burnt and scattered. When the Sultan dies, Aladdin seats on his throne and lives in happiness with his wife till they die.